All right, welcome everybody. It's 6 p.m. and I'll call to order this August 26th, 2021 meeting of the Temecula Public Traffic Safety Commission. And we'll start with the flag salute by Commissioner Maddox.
All right, everybody please stand and join me in saying, I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And prior to roll call, I believe Brooke had something to read.
Yes, we did have an administrative change, so the signature line is now going to say your name, Mr. Richardson, instead of Bob Hagel.
Very good, thank you.
And then we'll do roll call.
Roll call, please.
All right. Carter?
Here.
Maddox?
here.
Richardson?
Here.
Sullivan?
Here.
All right.
All right. Presentations. We have none.
We'll go ahead and go on with the consent calendar, and then we have a presentation by our city clerk, Randy.
Very good. All right. So prior to consent calendar is public comment. I understand we have one public speaker. So I will read the magic statement. Total of 30 minutes is provided for members of the public to address the Public Traffic Safety Commission on items that appear on the consent calendar or a matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. For all business items on the agenda, each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Public comments may be made in person at the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the secretary or by submitting an email to be read aloud in the record at the meeting by the secretary. Email comments must be submitted to Anissa Sharp at temecula.ca.gov. Email comments on all matters, including those not on the agenda, must be received prior to the time the item is called for public comments. Email comments shall be subject to the same rules as would otherwise govern in-person public comments. And our speaker is
Bob Hagel.
I got an hour, right? Yeah. I just wanted to hear you read that, so, yeah. So I just wanted to let you all know that you've got a really, really solid commission, and with the addition of David taking that seat and functioning as like a 5-year member in 15 minutes, I felt very comfortable in applying for the role of commissioner for the Planning Commission, and given that they had 2 people that were leaving at one time, and there's a lot going on in the city right now, I felt that it was my duty to apply. So I just want to say thank you all. We've got a great commission, and the staff has been absolutely great. Nick is another great addition, and talk about up and running real quick. Nick is quick, and we're really set to go. So the one thing I do want to say is Paul is not striped yet.
I'll be reporting on that,
Okay.
the traffic engineer's report.
But I really appreciate my time here. It'll be 15 years in October, and so it's very strange being on this side of the dais, and really appreciate it. I'll see you all around at all the events. Hopefully we have plenty of events that we can all go to, and Delta doesn't keep us home. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Good luck, Bob, and thanks for your guidance and my tenure here also. Learned a lot from you, so thank you.
Right. All right, thank you, Bob. We appreciate you coming to address us tonight. Thank you very much. We'll continue with the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the Public Traffic Safety Commission request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. The only item is the action minutes approval for July 22nd, 2021. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second?
We have a motion by Chairman Sullivan, or
No,
Commissioner
former
Sullivan.
chairman.
Former Chairman, Commissioner Sullivan, and a second by Commissioner Maddox. Roll call vote.
Carter?
Aye.
Maddox?
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to business. Item 2 on the agenda is receive presentation on local redistricting efforts, provide general recommendations regarding public engagement. Presentation.
Good evening, Chair Richardson and commissioners, deputies, staff, and for anybody that may be watching this tomorrow, now that all of our boards and commission meetings are publicly available online. I am here tonight to go ahead and introduce the topic of redistricting to this particular commission. We, this year, are going to all of the boards and commissions and doing a little redistricting intro. For some of you, you may have watched Tuesday night, we actually had our first public hearing. We were hopeful to get to you guys before that hearing as well, but you know, sometimes with some cancellations and things like that, unfortunately, we weren't able to. But nonetheless, we want to make sure that you are actively engaged in the redistricting process as well. So again, we are undertaking the local redistricting process in the city of Temecula. Next slide, please. So as you all know, we here in the city of Temecula, we have office holder elections in November of even-numbered years. In 2017, we went ahead and went to districting. So we transitioned from at-large districts, or at-large elections to district-based elections. In 2018, we held those district elections for districts 1, 3, and 5. In 2020, we held those district elections for districts 2 and 4. So at this point, our city is fully districted into the districts. Next slide, please. So given that we are a district-based city, every 10 years we are required, utilizing new census data, to go ahead and redraw our district lines to reflect how local populations have changed in our community. The districts are drawn so that roughly each district is representative of an equal population, ensuring that each council member is roughly representing about the same number of people. Next slide. So in the city of Temecula, the city council is responsible for approving the local districts and the lines. We do use a consultant demographer. We use National Demographics Corp. And they are also the demographic consultant that we use for the initial districting process. The census data is expected. So there is some data that already came out a couple of weeks ago that it came out in legacy format. It is not the data in the format that we will be using for our local redistricting purposes. But it is good data to go ahead and start using for estimation purposes and holding our pre-public hearings. Our adjusted data is expected in late September or in early October. For Temecula, the redistricting process must be completed by April 17, 2022. The adjusted data is basically data that comes from the state of California after it has adjusted the data for incarcerated persons being assigned to their last place known of residence. So once we have that adjusted data, we'll be able to move forward. Next slide, please. So with respect to redistricting, we have two sets of laws that we have to use. We have to use the federal laws and we have to use the state laws. Under the federal laws, we use the Federal Voting Rights Act. And the Federal Voting Rights Act basically states that substantially the districts have to be equal population as determined by the most recent census, and there it is, adjusted by the state to reassign incarcerated persons to their last place known of residence. There's other requirements specific in the Federal Voting Rights Act, and of course we have to make sure that there's no racial gerrymandering. Next slide, please. Under the state of California and the Fair Maps Act, just recently, 3 years ago, we had the adoption and approval of Assembly Bill 849 and also Assembly Bill 1276. Together, those are the Fair Maps Act. And so under California, to the extent practicable, in the following priority, we have to make sure our districts are geographically contiguous. We have to make sure that local neighborhoods and communities of interest are respected in a manner that minimizes their division. We have to make sure that the boundaries are easily identifiable, so major thoroughfares, arterials, as opposed to internal neighborhood streets. We need to make sure that, to the extent practicable, the lines are drawn to encourage geographic compactness. And we have to make sure that the boundaries are not drawn for the purposes of favoring or discriminating against a political party. Now, granted, we are at the nonpartisan level here, so that's not as relevant, but it's still a mindful consideration that we have to take into consideration. Next slide, please. So we have a ton of requirements. So when we went to districting in 2017, we only had to do, a set number of public hearings and outreach to the best of our effort. Well, under the new law, we actually have to have a specific website. We have to have hearings, public hearings before the maps are drawn, public hearings after the maps are drawn. They have to be available for a certain number of days. We have to do good faith effort outreach to communities of interest, including communities of color, communities that don't have English as their primary speaking language. So that's part of why we are speaking at all of our boards and commissions as well, just for general awareness purposes. So we'll have those public hearings. We're having these stops and workshops. We are definitely including communities that do not speak English. We have our population, roughly 20 to 25%. English is not the primary language spoken at home. So it's very important that we understand that and reach out in all of our English and Spanish for all of our redistricting and election materials. The website is already up. You can go ahead and go to temeculaca.gov/redistricting. There is all kinds of good stuff already on there, and it will be updated live, real time. So if, for example, the presentation from Tuesday night is already up there. It also explains to folks how they can go ahead and get engaged in the process. We are working with IT to go ahead and possibly have an app as well. We have already done press releases out to every major media outlet out there, as well as several organizations and neighboring cities as well, so we can definitely get the word out there. We will also be utilizing social media, printed advertisements, HOAs, basically anywhere we can get the word out. Next slide, please. So again, we have kicked off our initial public engagement efforts by making presentations to the City Council, all of our boards and commissions. We are here specifically to solicit any feedback that you may have as commissioners on any particular groups that we should be engaging. So again, some of the things that have come up are HOAs, our local realtors group, communities of, when we say communities of interest, it could be, for example, we have one mobile home park in town. We want to make sure that that mobile home park does not end up in two different districts, right? So to the extent possible, if there is an area that goes to a particular elementary school, to the extent possible, we're going to try to see if we can't get that particular area to continue. There are community of interest that go to that specific elementary school. To the extent possible, there are community of interest. We're going to try to not split them up. And again, this is all, to the extent possible, we're also going to make sure that if we can minimize folks changing districts to the extent practicable, you won't necessarily see brand new maps, with everybody in brand new districts. You might see some boundary adjustments here or there from the existing districts, but again, really minimizing when folks are going, hopefully they're going to the same election season that they're already getting used to, and so on and so forth, because we want to make sure that people aren't waiting 6 years to vote. So that's an example of some of that. So with that, Chair Richardson, I will turn it back over to you to facilitate any questions or any discussion or suggestions for communities of interest being identified.
Good, thank you for your presentation. We'll go right down the line.
All right.
Commissioner Sullivan.
For those watching at home, I just wanted to add, the expert presenting this is Randy Joel, our city clerk and chief director of legislative affairs. Thank you, very good. And I'm assuming, just to make sure everyone understands, this is redistricting of council districts, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Thank you.
Just one question, Randy. Seeing that we did this in 17, and it's within the 10-year window of 2010 census, now with the 2020 census, do you anticipate any big changes in that short period of time?
You know, I do only because, and big is relative, so,
Right.
you know, you can kind of identify that. But what we know is we have had areas that have developed since 2010, right? Like the Roripaw area, the Red Hawk, Wolf Creek area, right? So any areas that we have either annexed or built out since 2010 would all be new population for us.
So they didn't count that when you did it for 2017
No,
district lines?
no. 2017, when we went to districts, we are required by law to use the census data. We cannot use any other data.
Well, that's what I meant. If we were using the 2010 census data,
Correct.
wouldn't we have already gathered a lot of those up until 2017?
Yes, but we could not account for them.
But you couldn't account
You could not count for them. So while we knew
Okay.
that Roripaw was developing,
Okay.
they could not legally be counted in that.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you for the report. So my question has to do with this notion of community of interest and how we define that. So for context, I'm not 100% sure I have the correct definition that we need to use here, but the California State Constitution defines a community of interest as a contiguous population which shares common social and economic interests, and then it cites examples of shared interests are those common to an urban area, to a rural area, industrial, and so on. So based on that definition, I think a shared economic community of interest that comes to mind immediately for me would be Old Town, or more specifically, all the people who spend most of their day working in Old Town. But then, of course, the census doesn't count people based on where they work. So you see where I'm going with this. At the end of the day, when all those shops close and the people go home to their different census blocks, it's all across the town and some people, outside of Temecula. So for the purpose of counting and voting, that population might not necessarily be contiguous in that context. So I guess my question for you is, for the purpose of drawing a map, would Old Town be a valid community of interest that we should consider?
Yes. And thank you for the question. Yes, and you will see that currently it is considered a community of interest and in one district as well, because we have residential population on Pujol Street. We have a residential population that actually live in Old Town, and were counted for census purposes in Old Town. So they are absolutely a community of interest that have social concerns and have economic concerns based on what happens in Old Town in their community. So absolutely, to the extent possible, it's always nice not to be able to, if we don't have to, split up Old Town. Now, that being said, there are cities where their main economic hub, they have split that up because all of the council members wanted a little piece of that particular economic hub. But in a lot of those situations, that economic hub doesn't necessarily also contain residential. So here we have decided that that's not a primary consideration because we have Promenade, in the middle. We have Old Town here. We have Butterfield Stage and everything that's happening over there. And obviously Pachanga, even though it's not counted, it is adjacent to communities of interest. So I hope that answers the question.
Thoroughly, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. I guess I just, so good presentation. I saw the presentation at City Council the other night, and you answered some questions that I didn't get answered there, so appreciate it. One of the questions I was going to ask is, do we try to minimize the number of people changing districts? And you said that we do, so that's good. And the point about the school communities, especially the elementary schools, would it probably be rare that an actual school would switch districts? Or is that really just driven, because normally when we have a huge development like a Roripaw, there's going to be another school added, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. So the reason I bring up school districts is because, obviously a school district's jurisdiction is much larger over a community beyond neighboring cities and so on and so forth than a city jurisdiction. But to the extent possible, we are still mindful of those considerations. That doesn't mean that we will be able to adjust, we won't be able to match up 100% our boundaries, our district boundaries with the school district boundaries. It will not happen because the population totals won't. But we are still able to be, take that into consideration and be mindful of communities that share those social interests or share those neighborhood interests. And communities that are going to the same elementary school would, in the past, they have been considered a community of interest because they're using the same walking routes, they're using the same bus routes, they're using the same, they have the same street considerations and so on, and traffic considerations, whatever it might be, law enforcement considerations. So for those reasons, they could be considered a community of interest.
I guess my final question is, as we continue through the hearing process and begin to see the maps, which is the exciting part, will the main drivers for any changes be communicated? It's one thing to say, here's the change, but my interest is if there is a change, what's driving that change and having that knowledge. Is that part of the reporting?
It is, absolutely. And that is why the hearings are set up where you have 2 hearings before we even draw the map. So we can take all of the input into consideration, and then we have 2 hearings after we draw the maps. And that third hearing is going to show all of the draft maps that not only the demographer has put together, but then also if the public has submitted anything as well, we'll be looking at that as well. And there will be a robust conversation on how the maps have changed and why they are different from the existing maps.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think that's it. Thank you very much for your presentation and informing us. We look forward to the process.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Randy. All right. We'll file that. Continuing on with number 3, proposed restriping on North General Kearny Road.
Thank you so much. So at a recent Parks and Rec subcommittee, there was interest in looking at adding additional parking for Long Canyon Creek Park, and they wanted us to look into adding street parking. Long Canyon Creek Park, you can see on this map, I don't know how to point to it, but it's on the south side of North General Kearny Road, and it's adjacent to North General Kearny Road. So city staff looked into this request, and we feel we can provide this parking. We can do this by removing the number 2 lane. That lane we can remove that lane because North General Kearny, east of Camino Campos Verdes, turns into a 1-lane road in each direction. So we felt like we could do that. So what we show here is the striping of a bike lane and then also a parking lane on that south side. Previously, we have done some striping on the north side of General Kearny Road here. It's shown in white. It's kind of hard to see, but we show that work that we did in the past. I don't know the exact date. Eric may know.
That was actually done earlier this year, right before the school came back into session.
So that's what we're showing here. One other thing that's not shown here that we're looking into doing is adding some no parking signs just a little bit before and after the signal. A lot of cars during school pickup and drop off park in between those signals, and it's not a safe place to park. They also block that dirt driveway, so we kind of want to restrict them from parking there. And since we added parking, we feel it's a okay thing to do there. That's all I had to add. Pat, did you need to add anything to that?
No, that's the conclusion of the report, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments? Brad?
On the driveway here, it has the trees to the left of it there. Is that going to create any sight visual problems for people coming out of the driveway seeing the bikes coming?
No, it actually, we have red curb just before and after the driveway to help increase those sightlines, but we don't feel there's going to be a sightline issue to seeing those
Okay,
bikes.
so the trees aren't too low that it would,
No, but we'll double check that before we implement. This is a conceptual striping at this point, but we will double check that.
yeah, that would be my only concern.
I should maybe add just one additional bit of information. One of the reasons for this request was that we are planning to add an amenity to Long Canyon Creek Park. We're planning to add a mini pump track at that park. So that's what that request was in order to address that potential demand for parking.
Yeah, actually, along those lines, I had a question. Just going to throw an idea out here and see if it's feasible. Do we have enough space to do a separated bike lane that would be, so curb and gutter, then the bike lane, then some kind of barrier, maybe flexible delineator posts, and then the parking lane? And the reason I bring that up, I know we don't have anything like that anywhere else in the city, so it kind of doesn't fit our template. But with that mini pump track that was approved by TCSD a couple days ago to go into that park there, that's really aimed at younger riders. It's a more accessible pump track than the large one at Ronald Reagan. And I'm just concerned if we add the parking to the right, then that's in a way increasing the cognitive load on the bicyclists going through there because they're having to pay attention to traffic on the left, cars parked on the right. Even with that 8-foot parking lane, that still turns part of the bike lane into a door zone where bicyclists have to watch out for, passengers in the car opening their door. Not to mention the parallel parking that's going to be taking place, across the bike lane. So would a separated bike lane even be, an option we could explore?
I'm not sure we have the room for that, but when we do this bike lane against the parking, we do try to account for that door zone. We do try to account for with about 3 feet. I forgot to mention, this is a buffered bike lane from the actual travel lane as well. I believe that's 3 feet, but Eric, you may have more details on that.
Yeah, so it is a 3-foot bike lane, and we're also providing an additional foot on the parking side. So we're making an extra width shoulder for the parking, as well as an extra foot that we added to the actual bike lane. On the option to put the bike lane on the curb, I'd also like to add that if we put the parking on the north side of that bike lane, it might limit the amount of parking we could get because it would affect sight lines coming out of these driveways. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I'm glad you reminded me about the extra buffer in there. I think anything we can do to make that bike lane, feel safer is going to encourage more trips to that pump track, with people taking their bikes instead of, driving the bikes there in their car. So that's good to hear. Thank you.
I guess the only thing I would say is with the pump track going in there, it would be good to understand where, those younger riders approaching from either direction would enter the park to go to the track, right? Probably wouldn't go the whole length of this new bike lane, right? So, but I would just, ask staff to think about how those riders would enter the park from the various directions to get to the new amenity.
Yeah, just to give you a little better orientation, you can see the lettering Long Canyon Creek Park, that's the parking lot for the park.
Yep.
And then the driveway into the park is right there next to the lettering. The driveway that's to the west or left side, that's actually an entrance into the church property that's to the west of the park. So that wouldn't be used by park users. So we would expect that most of the park users would be coming in through that driveway right there in the middle.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right. I think that's just a file. So, all right. So next agenda item is Inez Restriping between County Center Drive and Winchester Road.
Mr. Chair, that's actually a motion.
Oh, it is. Okay. Oh, we have a recommendation. Okay.
Yes.
So on number 3, for the North General Kearny Road, there is a recommendation that the Public Traffic Safety Commission direct staff to install the proposed striping on North General Kearny Road. Do we have a motion?
I move the recommendation as written.
I'll second.
So Sullivan moves and Carter seconds. Roll call vote?
Carter?
Aye.
Maddox?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
All right, now we'll move on to Inez restriping between County Center Drive and Winchester Road.
Yes. So this bike striping came as a request from Councilman Schwenk. He wanted us to look into how we could provide bike access to the Santa Gertrudis Creek Trail that is currently under construction. So we're looking at how can we connect it from in between County Center and Winchester. There are no bike lanes on Inez Road. So we looked at seeing what we can do. On the east side, we're able to get a Class 2 bike lane along that whole stretch, and that allows for access into the trail connection point there. On the west side, we're able to get a bike lane not all the way through to the connection point at the trail. It goes about halfway, and then we have some bike share row signs, not share row, but just share the lane signs. We really looked at seeing if we could get that bike lane all the way through, but it's not feasible just with the way the lane geometrics line up as you get to Winchester Road. But what you see here is we do have some buffer as much as we can. As you get closer to Winchester, we don't have a buffer for that west bike lane, but it does widen out as you go further away from Winchester. And that's about all we have for this one.
Questions, comments? No? Okay, thank you very much for the report. That one is a receive and file.
Yeah, and I just maybe to give you a little reason for the differentiation there between the actual motion on that, on the prior one and the receive and file. The prior one, we're taking a lane away and adding the bike lane, so that's why we wanted your actual approval of that. This one here, there's room for the bike lane without having to adjust the traffic lanes at all, so we figured that was more of a just a notification to you that we'd be adding those bike lanes there.
Very good. Thank you for the clarification. All right. I guess we move on to then division reports, California Highway Patrol.
Good evening. It's good to be in person with everyone and seeing everyone face to face, so thanks for having me here. So I think we actually went through, or Lieutenant Antillon actually went through the June report last month, so I'll go through our report for July. Really happy that we've been able to get services back to the public with things opening up for now, knock on wood. So we had our Start Smart class on August 11th, and we're hoping to continue those, and actually with looking for bigger venues so we can try and get about 150 students to those eventually when we can. They're a very popular program. 26 child safety seats was what we had installed. We had 6 traffic safety booths, 1 distracted driver presentation to teens, 2 Age Well Drive Start video presentations to seniors. We've also got our senior volunteer program that has returned, which is helping us out with responding to different traffic complaints that we have throughout the community. And we're right now looking at the return of our Explorer program. So, as far as enforcement activity, we had 575 citations issued, a total of 1,119 enforcement contacts. Our focused high crash reduction grant, unfortunately, we're about to lose at the end of September. It's been a great grant to be able to get extra patrol to different areas that we need throughout the Temecula CHP area. We've been having extra patrols on Ortega Highway because of issues we've had there, as well as some street racing problems we've had in unincorporated Temecula. I think I've talked about it before, Anza and Kimisal, and had some success there recently. DUI arrests remain about average, with about 41 DUI, or not about, we had 41 DUI arrests last month, and then 3 of those specifically were drug DUIs. And our traffic collisions remain fairly consistent. We have 100 non-injury collisions in the month of July, 57 injury, 1 fatal. We were at, as of the end of July, we were 15 fatalities at the for year to date. Total traffic collisions for the month were 158, and then of the DUI crashes we had, out of 41 DUI arrests, we had 16 were crashes. So one of the things we're working on is to try and keep that number of DUI PC, or primary collision factor, crashes down. So we want to be more aggressive in being out there, not waiting for them to crash and then arrest them. So to me, that was an encouraging number for my officers that have been out there doing a good job on that. As far as fatalities, we did have one northbound 215 south of McCall. We had a stalled vehicle in the lane, had mechanical problems. One vehicle was able to stop. Unfortunately, the one behind it wasn't, and caused a chain reaction crash where unfortunately one person did lose their lives. And that's it. Do I have any questions?
Yeah, got a question for
Yes.
you on the street racing in unincorporated Temecula. So given that, some of our neighborhoods sort of seamlessly transition between, being within the city, being within the county, and given that Southwest Station basically serves the whole area, are the patrol officers able to follow the crime kind of wherever it goes without worrying about what side of the city line that they're on?
Yes, absolutely. And we've actually, so the Sheriff's Department actually has a street racing task force. So I don't remember which month it was, but we actually called them up and we paired up with them. So we used that overtime grant that I talked about, and we used that and we paired up with them, and we kind of went throughout the city, because I'm sure you'll see as you go around, you can see it I've seen it on Temecula Parkway, De Portola, where people are just doing donuts in the middle of the streets. So sometimes it's near their area, sometimes it's near ours. So yeah, absolutely pairing up with them and going wherever we can to make an impact on it.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that we have that flexibility there. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I guess my only question is, on the cell phone sites, are you seeing that go up or down, or in your jurisdiction?
It's been steady, so it's been steady, and I've been, that's one of my personal pet peeves, is so I take personal offense to it. Last Monday, I actually went out there on my own and was able to get one person. It's difficult sneaking up on them in a black and white, but it is doable. When I drive my unmarked vehicle around town, that's when I tend to see them more, but at the same time, when I am in uniform in my unmarked, I'll go ahead and make the stop. I'll look at them, and I'm looking at them, and they're looking at me, and they won't get off their phone. So then I make the stop, and then they get off their phone.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
And
it.
I just have one comment. My windshield's still intact. Thank you. It's been very nice.
Good, glad to hear.
All right. No fire chief's report tonight?
I think they're busy.
They're busy, yeah, they're a little busy. All right. We'll go on to 7 police chief's report.
Good evening. Last week, I was accompanied with now Lieutenant Roberts as his replacement, since he has been promoted to lieutenant at the station. Tonight, I'm accompanied by newly assigned Traffic Sergeant Joey Sins, and I'm not sure who will be here next week, but it'll be one of us, most likely. So thank you for having us tonight. Our report, citations issued for hazardous violations over the last 3 months is 2,405. Our non-hazardous citations over that same 3-month period from May to July is 428. Our seatbelt or click it or ticket violations are over the 3-month period are 28, and our cell phone or distracted driver violations are 293. Parking citations over that same period are 867, and we have written 735 warning citations during that period. Our stoplight abuse program or intersection-related violations are 155. Commercial enforcement sites are 104, and our injury collisions during that time are 128, and our total DUI arrests for the 3-month period are 131. Are there any questions, concerns?
I'd just welcome Sergeant Sins. I think you'll enjoy the assignment, and just stay as aggressive as they have been.
Yes, welcome. No other questions? We'll move on to the traffic engineer's report. Pat?
Thank you, Chairman Richardson. One I wanted to mention to you is, and I heard in the CHP report regarding Ortega Highway, Caltrans has a full closure of Ortega Highway scheduled for this weekend. So starting, I believe it's Friday evening and going until Monday, you will not be able to cross the highway. I'm not sure exactly where the the closure and the stop is, but you won't be able to get all the way across to Orange County from here and vice versa from the other direction. So that's scheduled during the 55-hour period during this weekend. So just FYI. Mentioned earlier, our Paba Road and Butterfield Stage Road repaving projects. All the paving is done and the permanent striping has not been done yet. Our contractor had an issue with their striping subcontractor and being able to procure materials. So they're now scheduled to actually do that striping right after Labor Day. So that's the latest in that project. We've got a residential slurry seal project that's just getting underway. So it's primarily the Temecula Hills neighborhood and Roripa Hills neighborhood and those neighborhoods in that general vicinity. So those roads will all be slurry sealed over the next month or so. Nick is going to give you a report just a minute here on a project that we're working on to prepare a local road safety plan or LRSP. So he'll give you that report in just a minute. I did want to mention, before you adjourn your meeting this evening, I know Bob Hagel had mentioned that there is a concert scheduled for September 23rd, which is the regularly scheduled date of our next meeting. We don't have anything urgent for you at this time. So if, at your discretion, if 2 of you or more were planning to attend that concert, we would not have a quorum. And if you choose to cancel that meeting, we can do that and then just have our next meeting in October. So I'll leave that up to you to discuss when you're ready for that. And then lastly, there's been a lot of discussion lately about communications with city council members and commissioners and things like that. And so there is a new email address that's going to be established for the commission. So the public will be able to send an email to the Traffic Safety Commission in general, and then those emails will be forwarded to you. And then there's also going to be an email address established for each of you in the city's email system. However, that will be an internal email only, so you shouldn't be receiving public email messages to that email. But if we do receive email messages from the public addressed to the commission, we'll be forwarding all those to you, and if we have to add any additional information, we'll include that when we forward those emails. So I just wanted to let you know about that. That's coming up in the next month or so when that'll all be set up.
On those, the emails, will they become agenda items for next meetings, or do you decide?
Yeah, not necessarily. If there are requests for something that we would typically consider, we will plan to put those on an agenda at the timing that we're able to get those on. But if it's even just to give input or comments on issues, we'll be sending those to you just as an informational item. So,
I just wanted to say thank you for forwarding the city manager reports. For myself personally, I feel like I have a much better idea of what's going on in the city, and now I feel a little more confident when a neighbor asks a question that I have enough information to answer.
yeah, a lot of good information, and those are daily, so you'll get those daily as well. So
Yeah, no, that's
don't want to
wonderful.
overpopulate
Thank
your inbox, but we'll get that stuff out to you.
Yeah, just want to echo Commissioner Sullivan's comments there on the daily emails. I so appreciate those. So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Likewise, a game changer for me as well, so
Good.
really great. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Nick to give you that update on the LRS.
Very good.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with LRSPs, but it's a local roadway safety plan. The local roadway safety plan, provides a way to organize stakeholders within the city to identify, analyze, and come up with solutions to safety improvement projects within the city. It's kind of a requirement for future grants that we go for safety grants. So we've been undertaking this over the past several months. We're going to come up to the point where we're going to be doing stakeholder meetings. So we'll be doing 3 different stakeholder meetings. One's with engineering and public works, one's going to be with sheriffs and fire department, and then the other is going to be with the traffic commission. So I'll be sending out kind of a packet of information where you can review it, understand it, but we'll also provide a presentation. So look forward to that coming up within the next month. So just want to let you guys know about that.
All right. Director report, I guess that was. Yep, okay. So commissioner reports, Mr. Sullivan.
I just blanked on what I was going to say, so I'll raise my finger in a minute.
Very good. I'll start then. I attended most of the city council meeting this past Tuesday, and they were talking about the population growth, and some of the public speakers were concerned about traffic, especially Inez. And I guess my question was, as we have the population growth projection, do we have, I guess, a master traffic plan or master mobility plan, and is that part of the city's master plan, or is it separate?
No, it's actually part of the general plan. So the city's general plan has what's called a circulation plan, and that's the roadway network that is set up to accommodate the amount of traffic that's expected on all the roads. We are in the process of an overall update to the general plan, and the circulation plan will be evaluated and updated as part of that process as well. And then I can add the comment that was made at the council meeting regarding Inez Road and the area there near the duck pond. And there is a section of Inez Road that narrows down just south of the duck pond. And there's a development project actually being planned just south of the duck pond that would potentially be widening that section out to its ultimate 4-lane width associated with that development project. So that is on our radar screen, and hopefully that improvement will be done here in the not too distant future.
Very good. Yeah, as far as I guess the circulation plan, I know Roropar Ranch is a concern for many citizens on that side of town, that when it's fully built out, how will all those cars egress, and will we have enough, I guess, roadway volume for them on Winchester especially? So that's all covered in the master plan.
That is covered in the master plan, and that was also addressed in the environmental document and traffic study for that project. So there were improvements that were required as part of that project, and the widening of Butterfield Stage Road was part of that. The extension of Nicholas Road, which will be happening here sometime in the near future, is part of that. And then that project to reconstruct that intersection at Winchester and Nicholas was all part of that requirement for that project.
Okay, and I know the Butterfield extension to the north will be key there as well, correct? Is any timeline on that?
No, I don't have a timeline on that. That is you're talking about beyond Marietta Hot Springs?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that will involve county jurisdiction and improvements through an open space area that has biological issues, and so unfortunately that one is really not on our radar screen right now.
Very good. Okay. The only other thing from the city council meeting was Councilmember Ron asked for an item to come to our commission, so just a heads up on the Riverside County Public Health Update, and they're rescinding of the state of emergency orders. I know a lot of other cities have already rescinded, and we have not yet. The emergency orders put in place in March 2020, so we'll look forward to that. Just wanted to let my fellow commissioners know that we can expect that soon. That's what I had.
I remember my thought now.
Good.
Patrick mentioned September 23rd, and we should discuss. My thought is just to leave it in your decision. In
I guess
discussions with
we
Patrick.
I guess we can address it now. Is anyone opposed to canceling since we don't have a full agenda? I think we're all good.
No, but give you the leeway should something come up.
Yeah.
Call.
I'd say let us know in a week if we're still looking like nothing's going to be on the agenda, then we can go ahead and cancel. Very good. Thank you. If there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.